Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. We are so happy to have you join us today. My name is Dawn Samples. I'm the director at Avant More Learning, and today we are partnering with our friends at FLAVA, the Foreign Language Association of Virginia, to bring a webinar to you titled Meeting the Challenges of Instruction, Practice, and Feedback in World Language Teaching Online. We're so excited to have you with us today. We are just going to go through a few little housekeeping details, and then we'll introduce our speakers and we'll get underway. So just to start off, to let you know, More Learning stands for More Learning Opportunities, Reaching Everyone. And we wanted you to know that at the end of today's webinar, you will have a link that will pop up for you. When you click on that link, there's a short survey where we'd like to hear from you, just a short reflection on your learning, if it was helpful, what other things you might like to learn about. And when you complete that brief survey, you will have a certificate of attendance that you can access from that link. You can just print that out, put your information on it, and use that for credits, for if you need credits for recertification or CEUs or PDUs. I also wanted to let you all know that we are recording the webinar, and the webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel, most likely tomorrow. It'll take it a while this afternoon to render. And we'll also be sending you a link to the slide deck and to the chat. So we want to make sure that you guys are interactive and participants with us today. Our moderator is going to be posting in the chat for you guys. We want you to make sure you introduce yourselves, tell us where you're from. You can also follow us on Twitter. Make sure you use the hashtag JumpstartWL, Jumpstart World Languages. And if you want to follow flavaweb.org, on their website, or at FLAVA-Web on their Twitter account if you want to follow them there, and we are at More Learning on Twitter. So make sure you're following along, make sure you're participating. We want this to be interactive and engaging for you. We want you guys to share resources and materials, because that chat, you'll get a PDF of that chat and you can go back and find those things later. Okay? So our Twitter and chat moderator today, we're so happy to have with us Pam St. Clair. She's the communications coordinator for FLAVA. So welcome, Pam. We're so glad that you could join us and that you're helping us out today. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. We have a really good group. So people from all over are chatting. So that's awesome. Don't forget to tweet out and also to tag us in anything, and then later on we'll have a break and we'll talk about what's being said. So thanks everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam. We also have three presenters with us here today. Our first presenter is Allison Carneiro DaSilva. She's the World Languages Department leader in Hanover County Public Schools. You can also follow her on Twitter at ACWLTeach. Allison, thank you so much for joining us today. We're glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
After Allison talks and shares with us a bit, we have Rhode Nicole Ba, who's the World Languages Department Chair at Falls Church High School. And Rhode is going to talk with us today also. She's going to be talking with us about practices. Rhode, thank you and welcome for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And our third presenter today is Dr. Becky Fox. She's a professor of education at George Mason University in the College of Education and Human Development. And she is going to be sharing with us today about feedback. So Becky, thank you so much for being with us today.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dawn, so much, and welcome to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Becky. So we're going to start off today. The way that we have sort of framed this webinar is around an overarching essential question. And for us, that question today is, in what ways can world language teachers promote and maintain active learner engagement in upcoming blended, online, face-to-face, And that question could go on because some of us don't know what the situation's going to be in the fall. What are ways that we can promote and maintain learner engagement in these environments? So our presenters are going to present information, but we also want to hear from you. So make sure that you're sharing in chat and make sure you are tweeting. And I am going to pass the baton to Allison. And Allison, we're going to let you start sharing your information. Oh, sorry. Allison. Allison's going to do the instruction piece. Rhode is going to do the practice component of this and responding to that question. And then Becky is going to give us, towards the end, ideas for providing feedback as a response to the essential question. There we go.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for spending what, for many of you, is your first official day of summer vacation here with us, getting some professional learning in. When we think about instruction in the fall, we don't know. We're all going to be in different places, and a lot of us don't know what that place is going to be. It might be completely online. It might be some face-to-face and some online, which is what we normally refer to as blended learning. It might be that we are going to be seeing more of our kids face-to-face on certain days of the week. We just don't know. And so it is hard to prepare for that. The first thing that we really need to do to get ready for that, though, is to reflect on what happened over the last 3 months. And keep in mind that what happened over the last 3 months is not what it will look like in the fall, most likely, because we have a little bit of knowledge under our belt now. So think about what worked over the last 3 months. Think about what has to change to be successful next year. And think about what you would have liked to have known and if that would have an effect on your instruction. And then see how you can incorporate these things in the fall. When I look back and reflect, I think that the whole time that I was going through teaching over the last few months, I wanted to know how this was all going to culminate in June. Our principal kept saying we are building the plane as we're flying it. And that's exactly what it felt like. It was exhausting, not knowing what to expect, not knowing what was going to happen. How are we going to grade? Is it going to be meet expectations? Is it going to be, it's actually going to be a grade? Did all grades end on March 13th? We had all these questions, but when I really sit down and think about it, it didn't have that big an effect on what my instruction would have been. So my instruction would have been the same either way, or would have been very much the same. There were other things that I would have done if they were getting grades. Things might have changed a little bit, but overall, it was not absolutely essential for me to worry about all of those things. I think a big change that a lot of us see in different divisions across the nation is a lack of equity. This really opened our eyes to how we really need to work to reach all students. And we saw that that was tough during this time. So those are that's something that we're thinking about really in the big picture in my division, and I know in many other divisions. But when I reflect on what went right over the last few months, it's the amount of collaboration. We have had so many teachers share out all kinds of resources and choice boards and lesson plans via Facebook, via Twitter. They've gone through the departments, they've gone from colleague to colleague, and it is just beautiful. And I'm so thankful for all of the sharing that has happened. That's something that has worked. That's something that we want to continue. And that's something that you're helping with by being here today. So I really thank you for that. Rather than worry about the unknown and spend a lot of time personally freaking out about what might happen in the fall, it is best for us to put our energy towards creating activities that we can use online and we can use in a blended environment when we do ease back into being in the classroom. Dawn, I don't know, here we go. The first thing that we need to do, whether we are in the classroom or just online, is build community. And I think it's slowly going back to the slide. So we know that we learn from people we connect with. Give your students a chance to share about themselves. They can submit pictures and describe them. One idea that I saw that I really love is virtual learning portraits. and it's where students will gather things that are important to them, place them all out on the floor, and then lie down in the middle and take a selfie. And then they can use that to talk about themselves. And it can also be kind of a virtual bulletin board that you can set up via Google Drawings or other ways, Padlet, so that the kids can share about each other and learn about each other, share about themselves and learn about each other. It is important to define the norms together. This is a totally new environment for most of us. And while we have certain classroom expectations, we need to make sure that we make our expectations clear when we are learning online and in a blended setting. And I think that it's also important to find out from the students what their expectations are. What is it that they need from you? Ask them to reflect on what happened over the last 3 months and what would have been good for them to know, what would have been good for them to have, so that you can be that resource for them. And then remember that while you have a certain way of doing things in your classes, other teachers are probably going to do it a little bit different sometimes. The students really need to be aware of what our expectations are. I think something specific to world language that we need to consider is the fact that with us being online all the time, and we probably saw this over the last few months, translators are going to be used. Kids are going to use them. It's the easy way. Sometimes it gets them out of a bind. We saw more translator use. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that when we think about how we're designing our assessments, we can incorporate ways for us to design assessments that are more realistic and more authentic, so that a translator use wouldn't necessarily help anything. But make sure your expectations about that are very clear, and you might need to have instruction that specifically addresses the use of translators and other online resources. You're probably going to see your students online more often than in person, so consider that. Consider what's important to do when you're online and when you're in person. Now, I think the best way to build community, and also a great way to teach, is by incorporating games. I have a lot of game ideas there at the bottom of the screen, and I have a link to a Google Slides presentation that I have used in class with my French students. And when you open that, it'll prompt you to make a copy, and you have a bunch of slides with a whole bunch of different game ideas. These are things that are in English there, but when you make your own copy, you could put them in any language that you teach. These are games that help the students get to know each other, but also they can learn and use the target language. It's a lot of fun. The kids really enjoyed it, and this is something that helped us get a jump start over these last few months by building community and getting instruction in at the same time. When we plan, we need to really plan with intention because we're planning differently now. Of course, we start with the I can statements and think about what it is that we want our students to be able to do by the end of the lesson or by the end of the unit. And then we're going to need to think about how that can be streamlined. We're going to have a lot less time with our students, not just in the buildings, but even online. We will not have the same number of hours with students. It's exhausting. We cannot do Zoom all the time. And so we are going to really need to think about what is essential. What is it that we need to have the students doing in order to get to the point of proficiency where they can meet those I can statements. Okay, it skipped on me. I'm sorry to be jumping back and forth here. One thing to keep in mind is that interpretive and presentational tasks can be done outside of class, and then interpersonal could be done in class. And when I say in class, that might be online, it might be in an actual building classroom. So class is going to be defined differently next year, of course. But any reading could be done outside of class. Students could make videos and watch each other's videos outside of class. And then once you're in class, you can have that guided interpersonal activity in order to talk about the things that they have interpreted and presented outside of class. And of course, there are a lot of ways that we can incorporate online resources. Start with your learning management system. In my district, we use Schoology. A neighboring district uses Canvas. If you don't have an LMS in your district, I would suggest going to Google Sites, and starting a website of your own. It's really best to have one place where all of your resources are housed so that students can get to that and it's very clear. Edpuzzle is a great resource to use. ThingLink is one where we have images and then links on there. That's a paid site, so if you use Google Drawings, you can put in a little bit more work and have the same effect for free. We've seen a lot of Bitmoji classrooms that people have been designing using Google Slides and Google Drawings. You also have a site called classroomscreen.com that allows you to do the same thing. It's basically a landing pad where you have links to different resources for your class there. Of course, you can use Zoom and have breakout rooms in order to be able to do small group work during your class time. You can also use your class time for different comprehensible input strategies, such as movie talks. Maybe you can play a movie, share your screen, and then keep stopping it so that you can talk to the students and have kind of a back and forth question answer. You can use book discussion for any books that students might be reading outside of class. You can also add an instructional visual as your background, and then use that as an anchor chart as you're giving your class, as you're teaching your class. Reach out to your colleagues and work together. Like I said in the beginning, collaboration is really what gets us through this. This is, we have a lot of great ideas ourselves, but other people have other great ideas as well. They can learn from us and we can learn from them. So right now I invite you to share some of your favorite resources that you already use in the World Language Classroom, and how could they, what are some resources you already use that you could use in the future as well. You can go ahead and put them in the chat box to share. You can also tweet them out using our hashtag that you see there at the bottom of the screen, hashtag JumpStartWL. Be sure to tag Avant More Learning and FLAVA. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Allison. I see the chat box is just popping with ideas. So we are going to go on to Pam. Will you share with us a little bit some of the things that you're seeing out there in the Twitter world and chat world?
Yes, it's really exciting. We have so many people participating from all over the country. And some of the things that we're getting, I think, that are really important. They're talking about tackling some questions today. Zach mentioned that, starting with how do we build community in virtual environments, which I think is really important. And most people are super excited to be here. They really love the training. And we had another tweet out saying, create what can be used both online and a blended situation, since we do not know what's really going to happen in the fall. And then Heidi shared a whole bunch of links in her tweet, a bit.ly from FLAVA Collab that has already a lot of great ideas. So we're getting a lot of activities on the Twitter right now, and a lot in the chat, but I think Dr. Kittner wanted to talk about what's going on in the chat. If we want to switch to him. Dr. Kittner, are you ready to report on your chat?
Yes, I'm ready to report on my chat. Okay, what I've seen is lots of exchange of ideas, lots of things we'll be able to look at. We'll have great resources, and I think the majority of the stuff which is being put on chat we'll discover is also on Twitter, which is good for us all because you'll be able to have access to that later and be able to deal with that after that. Lots of good ideas. I see Stephanie Barnes here is with some GimKit, Edpuzzle, Flipgrid, My Toolkit. Exactly. Lots of good things going there. Virtual partnerships is also a very valuable tool. It's going to be good for everybody to be utilizing. I mean, there's so much information out there, which is going to be available for us to use. And I think that we'll see more and more as the summer progresses and then it's return into the fall. Lots of possibilities for your creativity in the classroom that are going to be there. And we want to make sure that this conversation continues after this session is over with this afternoon. Give us, well, continue with our Jumpstart WNL. As you're going to tweet out more information, and you can also communicate directly with the panelists here this afternoon, as well as with Dawn Samples. Okay, enough from me. Talk to you later.
Thank you so much, Dick and Pam. Yes, so for those of you who may be watching this as a recording after this webinar, be sure you check out the hashtag JumpstartWL on Twitter and continue sharing there. Even if you're watching this after the fact, you can also contribute and share and keep adding to the list. And make sure those of you who are here, make sure you check out the chat when we share that with you, because so many resources are just flowing through the chat right now. So thank you guys for sharing with us and for being interactive participants. So we're going to continue on now. Rhode is going to take over and share with us some good ideas for strong practice. So Rhode, I am going to share this with you so that you can take over. There you go.
Thank you, Dawn. So I wanted to start off by saying first that teaching language is the literal spice of life. And we know two things to be true about getting comfortable in a language. First, that every speaker makes mistakes and nobody dies. And second, that the more input you copy, the more natural you sound, right? So let's put on a chef's hat. So the restaurant owner wants your staff to produce francophone appetizers, main dishes, desserts, and you're the expert. And believe it or not, all of your sous chefs do want to succeed. So time is your only enemy, therefore you must be efficient. So the first thing you want to do is to delegate. Your tools should not be taking from your plate. They should not be adding to your plate, they should be taking from your plate, right? Manually grading worksheets is not worth your while. I think you can find technology that will help kids practice and drill these structures, vocabulary and grammar, so that you can spend your time talking through each student's mistakes with them and prescribing a path forward. So remember, let technology do the grunt work so that you can do the human work. And also do have pity for parents and students, and definitely give them one central location to find everything. The second thing you want to pay attention to is increased interaction. Don't just let the sous chefs hear about cooking, let them stir the pot or touch the ingredients, right? We all use presentations so we can make them dynamic instruments of listening practice. PowerPoint Online does allow you to transcribe subtitles as you're speaking in the target language. Therefore, they're generally quite good, actually. So if you have that available, it is a paid option. You can just be speaking normally in the target language, though slowly, and they'll be able to match the sounds to the subtitles. Of course, we also have Pear Deck or Google Slides that may not have that feature, but you can put calls to action in the presentation itself. So put the text of your question in the slide, or keep the text in English, but stay in the target language. They're still mapping the language sounds to something. And it's vital that when you do that, when you call them to respond, you interact with the comments in the chat. So even if they made a mistake, but the message is clear, reward them by interacting and engaging with what it is that they responded with. If the message is unclear or quite fancy, ask them to reword it. And also, like my colleague said, have fun with it. Let them play, let them collaborate and compete. When we're playing games, the competition is never the point. It's everything that happens until somebody wins, right? When a student gets so passionate that they're yelling at each other in the target language because they desperately want to win, everybody wins. So what you're looking at right now is code names. This is a game where there are teams and there's a board of words. Each team has a leader that they know which words belong to their team. And so they give a hint to their team so that their team can select the correct words. It gets very competitive. It's also quite fun, but it's really good for circumlocution. It's available online in your target languages already. But if you want to make it more relevant to your unit or your vocabulary, in this link, you'll find a spreadsheet that allows you to just input your words, and it gives you that flexibility. It's very important also to step back while the students are processing. You do not want to be the only fountain of knowledge in the room. That's exhausting. So easy does it, pop in and out, answer questions, encourage them, but definitely let them learn from each other. In the classroom, you should definitely be more methodical about who is grouped with whom, but online, it works best if they're with their friends, because then they will actually speak. Remember also that students are more comfortable when they rehearse what they're expected to perform. So use small groups to that end. Give them sentence starters and example questions and have them create, perform, record with these, for example. Now, I haven't mentioned assessment yet, but it's an inevitable reality and it is a form of practice. For every few formatives, there must be a summative. So stepping away only works if the students can expect your return. So number 5, make your targets non-negotiable. Invite all the sous chefs to demonstrate that they learned by letting them play head chef for a day. For example, my students had to watch 3 short videos or 1 long one, and using the questions in the vocabulary list, they would make an appointment in the Google Calendar and we would just have a girl chat about it. To the student, this sounds like a speaking task, and 100% of them showed up with notes because I could hear pages turning, I could hear clicking, some were really trying to translate everything I was saying in the moment. But it isn't a speaking task, right? It's an interpretive task. And because I love games, I called this the boss battle, because no student could pass this task without having adequately practiced the prior tasks in their checklist, right? They had to do them for learning and not for completion. Actually, only 4 students had a successful first attempt. Many had a successful second. Most got it on the 3rd try. Unfortunately, we were in a do no harm system, so the grades didn't really count. So a lot of students actually gave up after the 1st or 2nd try. They're not used to that. But if you insist on the bar, I guarantee you, the students will rise to meet it eventually. Sometimes they just need the time. Finally, give them choice. Call it what you'd like, differentiation, personalization. Student choice genuinely fosters student ownership. My team got together and would negotiate common targets and structures. We planned the whole checklist, like the whole unit in English together, so that we could, when it came time to deal with our own target language, we were just translating and putting links and sometimes creating tasks, right? But the students arrived and they had the full view of the unit. So the student could choose the order in which they worked. They could choose what to focus on when. They could choose when to do which practice and where to find and do it. We were using a spreadsheet, but they could also find the same information in Google Classroom and on a Google site. So other teachers assigned like weekly choice boards or projects. But no matter your approach, it's important that you do not go it alone. Find a partner at your school, on Twitter, like in the state, I don't know, on the planet. Divide and conquer so that your students can have that flexibility in the path, pace, place, and timing of the asynchronous and synchronous practice. Now, of course, there will always be transgressions. Right? Students will sometimes read a script for a Flipgrid. Some will translate everything on a digital assessment. I've even had a student pull a project from a French site, like pictures, content, everything, and turn it in as their own work. Look, cheating is the resourceful response of someone who's clearly aware of the distance between them and a very appealing goal. So these are a reality. I don't think there's any way around it entirely, but you want to start with support. Students are going to want to tell you exactly what it is that they want to tell you. So give them the words, give them the sentence starters, even give them the questions, as well as give them opportunities to practice whatever summative task you're going to put before them so that they are comfortable. You also want to encourage and reward taking good risks. It's part of building trust. So if the student can trust you to accept their mistakes when their message is clear, then they will trust you with more mistakes than you ever thought you would see in your lifetime. But the thing is, they will be putting out in the target language. The third, you do also want to be a bit cheeky, a bit clever, right? You want to lay traps for translators. Play with synonyms in answer choices, especially on a multiple choice test. So if you know you gave them one word for earthquake, but not the other scientific one, and you find that someone chose that scientific one and you have never taught it, right? Don't call them out, but don't give them that point. And when they come during office hours or study hall to make corrections, then you ask them questions like, what English word brought this word to mind? How did you know that this meant this? 100% of the time that I have done that with students, it has ultimately come out that they used a translator, and we ultimately end up agreeing that the translator stole that point from them. Right? Do the same thing when they use a bit of fancy but confusing sentence structures, right? Question their thinking, and eventually you will be that little nagging voice in the back of the mind, and you'll eventually see like their actual language. Finally, if you're still taking translator use super personally, part of it is the task that you're giving them, or perhaps the rubric, right? What is the end goal? Because if it is perfection, they're going to use translators. If, again, you do all the steps above, you set an ambiance of mistake acceptance, you give them enough support, you make them comfortable in their own skin, in this context, in the language, I think you're going to mitigate the amount, well, not the amount of translator use, but the impact of translator use on all of their work.
Whoops, there we go. I could not unmute myself. Thank you so much, Rhode. So many good ideas. Just really practical, hands-on, immediately applicable ideas. Thank you so much. And we have so many other ideas that people are sharing in the Twitter world and on chat. So let's check back in with Pam and Dick. Do you guys want to share a little bit what we're hearing from all the participants?
Oh, sure. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Twitter. I really like this one. Kathy says, amazing collegiality and collaboration, which I think is what we all kind of need right now because we're so uncertain about what's going to happen. Again, Heidi has posted so many great sites, so you can check out on the Twitter. And there are a couple people that said they don't have a Twitter, so you can go directly to our website at FLAVA-Web.org, and it has the running Twitter feed with a lot of these links in it as well. And we're just getting so excited. Angelica says she loves collaborating with her global world language colleagues on ways to maintain active learner engagement, which I think is awesome. So lots of great ideas on the Twitter. Talking a little bit about cheating, and I think Rhode was talking about that as well, and how to combat that and sort of have fun with tricking them. I think that's a good idea. And then I think I'm gonna go ahead and stop now and give it over to Dr. Kittner so he can talk about what's going on in the chat.
Okay, so a lot of good information from the chat side. First one that I noticed is we're talking about Wakelet. If you're not familiar with that, you want to make sure that you subscribe to that and have that available for you in the class. And then this is to Melissa and others. You have to learn to tweet. She posts the question, and that's the only solution. If you want to be a part of the group and you want to follow everything like very, very efficiently, you want to become a member of the tweeting world, okay? Tweety is worth investigating. That's the best thing that I can say with that. And another big thing, which is a part of the chat, was breakout rooms, discussion of breakout rooms among all different types of and levels of teachers and languages. It was phenomenal what passed before my eyes in this particular portion. We're talking about Google Meet, we're talking about Zoom, we're talking about Canvas, all the different possibilities. The important thing here is what? It's making sure that students have the opportunity to work in groups, and that way everybody has an opportunity to become proficient in the language and its use. So Google Meet, Zoom, breakout rooms, breakout rooms, breakout rooms, okay? students working in groups. Highlights from the chat. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for reporting in. I think one of the things that I was most excited to see on Twitter, Martha said, I'm actually looking forward to teaching remotely this fall, thanks to the @FLAVA-Web webinar today. So that's awesome to hear. We're so glad that you guys are feeling empowered with some ideas and having some time to think about these things before you have to start teaching in this environment, unlike what we had to deal with earlier this year, right? So I am now going to turn it over to Becky. Becky, I'm going to share it with you so you can take it from here. Becky's going to talk with us about feedback.
All right. So hopefully hopefully I'll be able to advance this. Welcome to everyone. So I am the third one, and we've had so much incredible information about interactive learning, about setting community, about helping us move forward. And so incorporating feedback to support learning, I mean, our essential question is, in what ways can we be purposeful in providing feedback on an ongoing basis? Because these all of these wonderful online and in-class tools give us the opportunity to learn so much about what our students are learning and what their challenges are. Dawn, I'm going to just say to you that I am having a hard time advancing my screen. So
Okay. I can advance them for you if that makes it easier for you.
Sure. I think you'll be able to tell where I am.
Okay.
So my second screen, in looking back to March, which we've been doing a lot because we've just ended with school and we're moving forward. But when we first started our online journey, you know, what did your feedback look like at that point? Most everyone was in survival mode, but you all are experienced teachers. You provided feedback all the time. But in March, did it go well? Did you pivot? Were you graceful? Or was there a little bit more that you wanted to add to what you were doing? So I want you to take these this webinar and to reflect on the things you can do in class, and then to think about, how do I incorporate all of those tools, whatever I'm going to be using, into my planning? What is my feedback going to look like once I begin in August or September? So what does feedback look like to you and your students? So in this first picture on the left of your screen, of course, they're one-way streets, and we know that we don't want our feedback to be one-way. At least we don't intend it to be that way, but sometimes we get caught, right? Even in the best of intentions for two-way communication can sometimes miss its mark too. Sometimes you get to the end of a road and you can go either way. I don't know that that's the feedback that you would like to have. How about on that highway when you have two directional cars? You don't want to pass one another like ships in the night. When we look on the right and we see this circular, this home point, this roundabout, where cars are entering and exiting, and if I've missed something, I can go around that roundabout another time. I can pick up something that I missed. Was that the turn I was supposed to make? And so I think just thinking about the circular motion and the importance of what that can be for us is very, very important. So one of the big messages as you're thinking and planning this summer, and hopefully developing and working with your own community of co-teachers, incorporate feedback with intention. What do I want to get out of this? I want it to be meaningful. Rhode was talking about the fact that we don't want students to feel like they have to look up everything in Google Translate. Oh my gosh, that's not our goal, right? We want it to be authentic. We want them to have conversations, the stops and the starts. That's all right. Errors happen. That's the way we learn. We want you to be engaged with your students. Chat rooms, all kinds of different ways to engage, large group, small group. We also can think about this, putting our students first, student-centered, in concert with backward design. I want to help my students move from where they are to the next level up. But I want them to be engaged in that as well, because if feedback is what it's supposed to be, we are in this together. I am not the evaluator, I'm the facilitator. So thoughtful student engagement during, whether it's synchronous or whether it's in-class face-to-face, I think ongoing and informal is the way to go. And look at what your students are saying and doing, and look at that as your feedback of what do I need to do more of in class? What do we need to work on more so that we can move to that next level? So model your engagement expectations from the beginning. You know, September is a new start. Talk to them, let them know. These are the things we want to do together. Use that chat box. When you're online with your students, use that. If they're responding to you, really have them look at that, see what they're saying. That's our starting point for the next class. Everyone has mentioned Padlet, they've mentioned Gimkit, Pear Deck. All of those wonderful tools are here for interactive feedback. And someone whom I know very well, who teaches outside of Richmond, Kelly Webb, and I were talking about this. And she said that she uses Gimkit and Pear Deck all the time. She creates games for students, but it's not just for students to play those games. Yes, we want them to have fun. Those answers are feedback to us. We see where students are and what they need. So in thinking about this ongoing feedback, we want it to be teachers to students and students to teachers. We want to aim for that continuous feedback loop where we can pick up and go around that circle again if we need to. Also, students to students, peer feedback is awesome. And you know, if you're teaching something, you learn it. So if a student needs to present something or explain something to a group mate, that is an awesome experience for them. You can also look and see what the students are saying to one another so that you can help them be more effective peers. So some of the things that you can do also so that you're not always writing responses, as much as students can use things like Loom and Flipgrid, you can too. So talk back and forth about some of those papers. Take notes for yourself. Make observations about the types of error patterns that students on an individual basis seem to be making. Always think about your comments with giving them something to glow about. I did this really well. This is something I need to work on. So that glows and grows. I just love that. And I tell you, no matter what age you're working with, adults love it as much, if not more so perhaps, as some of our students do. So again, set that stage at the beginning of the year. Use rubrics. Use them when you're planning, but use them with your students, because that helps. I know for me, it helps me stay on target, but it also helps me to be purposeful about what I'm asking of students. It also helps me to seek the students' responses to questions that I have posed to them. Connect to the standards. That's an important thing too. And help your students set their goals, kind of those plans for leveling up to the next level. I also find that checklists for students. Am I doing this correctly? If I'm going to provide that feedback, Am I giving them the tools to give me the best product that they possibly can? Finally, I think this idea of who are we as teachers, as educators? Keep your feedback thoughtful, focused, purposeful. You know, what did that rubric say? What am I observing? What are the objectives? How well is the student working toward those objectives? And I know we were talking about being personal. Let's have the feedback also be personal and caring and empathy for students. It takes a lot of courage to say what you want to try to say when you might not have all the tools yet that you want to have. I just want to say something about grading and feedback. We all have to grade. But I always think in terms of if someone wants to redo something, let's give them the opportunity to do that, because it's just so important to think about that revise and resubmit for a better grade, for a deeper understanding, for being open to feedback that you're going to be providing in the next go round. So stop, reflect for a second. I call it drop everything and reflect. So this is a dear moment as you plan for fall, face-to-face and online. How are you going to build feedback into what you are thinking? Where is that feedback coming back to you so that you can do better what you're already doing well? But making that connection is hugely important. Lots of new tools, lots of new knowledge that you'll want to try to incorporate. You don't have to do it by yourself. Find that colleague, find that friend who's doing that as well. Allow yourself to be courageous and creative and try out some of these new tools, not all all at the same time, but one at a time. Enjoy them just as you enjoy your students. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Becky. What really insightful, wonderful ideas. And I love at the end when you said be courageous. I think we have to model that courage for our students. Just like Rhode said earlier, no one ever died from making mistakes. I think we've all made our fair share. But thank you for sharing that and some really concrete good ideas for giving feedback in an online setting. But a lot of those ideas apply to face-to-face as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's check in with Dick and Pam and see where we are on the chat and on Twitter. What are some of our participants sharing?
Well, it's everybody's very excited about the feedback portion because they're looking for new ideas to make feedback a little easier. A lot of people were saying, oh, this is awesome. This is great. It's a good idea to make sure that we're getting good, thoughtful feedback, purposeful, personal, caring, being empathetic, providing checklists for students to double check requirements prior to submitting formal writing assessments. That was a big one. Let's see. I know that I had something. One of your former students, Rebecca, was commenting that he was so excited to see you here today and was thrilled to be a participant in our webinar. So I thought that was really nice. And then we'll switch over to Dick and he can tell us what's going on in the chat.
Well, there's a lot going on. Oh, sorry about that. I said there's a lot going on in the chat presently. And one of the things that I've noticed about this is standards-based grading. And that's one of the things that's really important. One of the things that we had mentioned in the descriptions for the workshop this afternoon was the fact that you're going to have to, when you're teaching online, even adhere to those particular things that are important according to our ACTFL standards, according to the I can or can do statements, et cetera, the whole list, the whole gamut of things. But we want to make sure that the feedback that we give is appropriate and meets those particular needs in dealing with our students. One of the things that I did get more than just once, actually it's multiple times with regard to feedback is exhausting. Okay, trying to find the way to make the students interact, trying to make the students feel good about what they're doing, trying to see the students progress as they should be. A lot of good information with that, and I thank Becky for that as well. Let's see, GAMKit, Pear Deck, examples that were given out there to use also in this particular area of feedback. Dawn, can I ask a little favor here?
Sure.
Can you take about 2.5 minutes or a minute and just explain to some of the folks where they can find this information after the session is over? I think there was a general introduction, but I think at this particular point, people are still beginning to wonder where they can find information other than just tweet. Will they be able to have the slides, et cetera, et cetera? If you could just take, I would appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. And I will share this again at the very end, but you all, participants, you will receive a PDF that you can print out if you like of the slide deck. It will come to you in an email tomorrow. You will also get a PDF of the chat because there's so many ideas. That chat is like a treasure chest, right? The Twitter, you all can go and just look up the hashtag and follow the Twitter feed, Jumpstart WL on Twitter, but the chat, only you guys will receive the chat because it does identify, as you guys can see, your names. So we're not going to post the chat online somewhere. That's going to come to you through an email tomorrow. So you'll have a little folder that you'll be able to click on. It's a Google folder, so make sure that you can access that folder, and you'll be able to go in there and you'll get the slides, you'll get the chat, and you will also get your certificate. The certificate is actually going to be accessible to you after you complete the survey. And that certificate you can download and print and write your name in, and it gives you an hour of professional development credits. So hopefully that will answer some of those questions. I know a lot of you have been anxious about that. So you will be able to access all of those things. Oh yes, one question just came up too about the recording. Yes, the recording will be available probably tomorrow. I'll try to get it up today, but it might be tomorrow before it's finished uploading. And you'll be able to access that as well. In your email tomorrow, there'll be a link to the recording. So you'll be able to see that. And you also can always find this webinar and all of our free webinars on our More Learning site. It's morelearning.avauntassessment.com. And it will be posted on our YouTube page there as well. So make sure you can share it. You guys can use these with your departments for professional learning or however you want to use it to go back and watch and freeze and share. I know our presenters shared on a lot of good points that you guys are going to want to be able to follow up on.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. There's some don't forgets. That's actually what I was going to share here. And this way you guys will remember when you get the PDF of this slide deck tomorrow, this will help you remember how to go back and find the resources. Also, I don't know, Pam or Dick, one of you, if you'd like to share with everyone a little bit about the fall conference you guys are having.
Sure, I can talk about that a little bit. Okay. And if you have any questions concerning that, you can contact me. My email is down at the bottom of the page here on this particular slide. So we have a theme of beyond languages, and the reason why we have the skull there with so many different things is because so much in language is involved, right? And all these different concepts are there, and that's all of what we're teaching, the vocabulary, the grammar structures, whatever it happens to be that we're dealing with. So the Foreign Language Association of Virginia, and where I have here also, where educators go, where educators grow, which is true. You see the quality of the individuals we have here this afternoon, and at this particular conference, which is going to be entirely online in the month of October, October 8th through 10th. You'll be able to hear and listen to and watch lots of good presentations. The presentations have already been selected. And you'll notice here it's going to be low cost and there's no travel involved, which is one thing, and we'll have the quality unsurpassed. Anyway, registration is going to open on the 20th of July, and we would welcome you from around the country to participate with us, realizing, of course, that FLAVA is the oldest organization of its type in the nation. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful. I think it's exciting to think that despite unprecedented times when we're not able to hold our fall and spring conferences, we may actually get to attend each other's conferences in a way we never have before. So looking for the silver lining in all of this, our ability to grow and share together, I think, has expanded. And so thank you for sharing that information. I hope you guys will check that out. I do want to just tell everyone, thank you, our presenters. Thank you so much, you guys. It takes a lot of work to put these on. The presenters work really hard to be able to have good information to share, and they've been a delightful group to work with. I appreciate the partnership that we've had with FLAVA to be able to present this event for you. I hope that we will see you guys online. I hope that the conversation will continue on Twitter. I'm giving you guys just a few more seconds to say your goodbyes on chat, because I see the chat just popping. Make sure you do the survey so that we can give that feedback to our presenters and that they can see what your thoughts and reflections were on your learning. So thank you so much. This has been an Avant More Learning event, and we look forward to seeing you guys online again soon. Thank you.